It's the end of the world as we know it, and I feel fine. Let's get out of here. Aye.
Hey everybody, it's Aaron from Got a Minute. This will be a short video, just compiling some thoughts. I got a short attention span. I know some of you do, so sometimes the short stuff's good, and we will expand on these thoughts as we go. Sometimes live streams, we can get some longer stuff going and longer studies. But here are 10 reasons why I like the Passover season in general. Of course, we can name way more than that, but 10's a nice number. Okay, number one, Exodus chapter 12. What happens? We've got the Passover instituted right then and there. Moses and Aaron take out a multitude of people, and they leave Egypt. The blood of the door is what covers the people to keep them safe from their firstborn dying, and it's just an awesome rescue plan, and that is during the Passover season. Point number two, Exodus chapter 14. A few days later, the Red Sea is parted, and that is still in the Passover season. When I say Passover, unleavened bread, that whole week, right? So they have their first escape, and then some say 3 days, some say 7 days, whatever. It's in the Passover week at some point, and the Red Sea's open, and the enemies are defeated. And so we've got two instances of an escape during the Passover season. Number three, Joshua chapter 3, 4, and 5. If you read through it all, you can see that they cross over the Jordan during the Passover season, and specifically Joshua 5, it says that the manna stops and they meet the commander of the Lord. And most people would agree that they are actually meeting Jesus incarnate, So, and Joshua meets Yeshua. Yeshua meets Yeshua, and the story goes on, but I think it says that they actually institute and they do Passover on the 14th day after they cross the Jordan, inevitably going around Jericho 7 times. We're waiting for this 7-year tribulation, and then they go through 7 years of war to get the promised land after that. But it was around the Passover time that they really were doing all these things. They crossed the Jordan and they started to take over Jericho. The time of transition was during the Passover time. Number 4, we have the graves open. Jesus, it says he resurrected and the graves opened and the dead came out and they started walking around the city. Again, a mass transformation of people. Just like in Exodus, we've got this mass transformation of people. We got a rescue plan. Not only does Jesus die on the cross and resurrect, but the people come out of their graves and walk around the city. And this is during the Passover city. Number 5, John 20, verse 26. It says that on the 8th day, Thomas was poking Jesus, essentially. And so Jesus was gone for 7 days. Where was Jesus for 7 days? During the Passover time, he was upstairs, likely getting consecrated as a priest himself for us in the heavenly tabernacle. He was gone, and he came back, and Thomas was poking him. And so number 6, which is kind of into point number 5 here, is Leviticus chapter 8. It tells us that the priests need to be consecrated for 7 days. They got to be behind the veil. They can't go in and out of the veil. They must be there for 7 days to be consecrated. And we know that we are kings and priests, and we must be consecrated for some type of a 7. And we're waiting for this 7-year tribulation. And like I said, Joshua was at war with many nations for 7 years after they crossed the Jordan. So we got lots of 7s all over the place. And so the Feast of Unleavened Bread and all that stuff, the whole Passover season, there's a big 7 right there as well. So anyway, so that's point number 6. Point number 7, John 13, verse 9. Here's another one that is really worth expanding on. And it's when Jesus starts to wash his disciples' feet, and they say, what are you doing? And he's like, well, I got to do this or else you won't be with me. They're like, well, not just my feet, but my hands and my head too. So actually what he was doing, I think, is he was fulfilling the priestly duties there as well, because in Exodus 30, in order to enter the tabernacle, you had to wash your hands and your feet. And so I think he was actually kind of consecrating them as priests, and they didn't even know it yet. that kind of a thing. So there was another priestly kind of model there so not only do we have to be behind the tabernacle for 7 days, but there's a washing that needs to take place at the bronze laver. And so I think that that's what Jesus was doing. He was kind of washing his disciples' feet, as in allowing them to be part of the priestly transition, if you will. Okay, so there's probably a really cool study there. But that's point number 7. Point number 8. This is a fun one. John 20, verse 7. And what we see here, Jesus is not in the tomb. John and Peter are running, and they have a foot race. John gets there first. I think John represents the Rapture group, and I think that Peter represents the left behind. That's another conversation for another time. But the two of them will go on a foot race, and brother disciple John gets there first, the one that Jesus loved. But what do they see in the tomb? They see a folded linen. And generally speaking, the culture at that time is when a master folded his linen and left the table, and the servant saw that his cloth was there folded, he would know that his master is coming back. He is not finished. And so when Jesus folded his linen after he rose from the grave, he was telling us, and from the cultural standpoint, that it is not done and I'm coming back. In terms of his sin is covered, yes, but by folding the linen, he was telling everybody secretly, I'm coming back. I'm not finished. When you would crumple up your linen and toss it on the plate, that means the master was telling the servant that I'm done. I'm not coming back. Just clean up everything. So folding the linen in his grave was telling us he's coming back. And this was during the Passover season. Point number 9, Song of Solomon. Everybody loves to talk about Song of Solomon, especially in the spring, early summertime. And, the whole book is a pretty short book. I believe it's 8 chapters. It's a quick read. But it really seems to indicate a spring/summer harvest. And the 10th point is Matthew 13, verse 30. And this is an interesting one. And so I think that the best explanation of the Rapture group is barley. I think that the Rapture group would represent barley. The tribulation saints would represent wheat. And then there's oil and grapes, and those are some other harvest models. Maybe one of those would represent the Jews or whatever. Or I don't know. There's so many different types, but I believe that the Rapture group is barley. It's the first big harvest. Barley is winnowed. It is not crushed. You just kind of shake it in the air, and it separates. There's not a lot of hardship for barley to get the chaff off of it. And that's in the Passover season. And wheat is it's a bit harder, and it requires back then it required something called a tribulum to crush the wheat to get the chaff separated from the wheat. And it would be crushed over time. And so the interesting thing about that is, if we are the barley and the wheat is the tribulation saints, in Matthew 13, verse 30, it says, let the wheat and the tares grow together, and then at the end, we'll separate them and throw the tares to be burned. Well, what if that's how we explain this? What if the wheat and the tares are the tribulation saints and the bad guys going through the tribulation together and being separated at the end? That makes a lot of sense, because the barley's gone. The barley's out of the scene at this point. Lots more we can talk about with all that, but those are my 10 reasons why I like Passover, and not limited to those reasons. I'm sure there's others after this video that I'll think about, but I like any feast day. I like any day of the year to be raptured. There's just an extra special place for me when it comes to any Passover that we get to. Passover this year, most would agree that it's in late April. I think it's somewhere around April 23rd, and then goes to the end of the month there's like a 1 week thing there. So late April, generally speaking, this year, 2024. Yeah, I hope you guys get tight with Christ. I don't know when he's coming. Could be today, could be tomorrow, could be whatever, a couple months from now. Hopefully it's not a couple years from now. I don't know. But these are just fun ways to study. So get tight with Christ. If you want to join the God I Met community, we got links below any video. And hopefully we see in the clouds very soon. One day closer Go, Jesus, go.